Hello, my name is Andre Weltman and I'm the chairman of the Friends of Pine Grove Furnace State Park and a volunteer local historian here. We're standing in front of the old stone stack. That's the heart of Pine Grove Furnace. This is an old blast furnace, so called because there was a blast of air forced into the bottom during the iron making process. This particular furnace was built, we think, around the early 1770s and continued making iron until April of 1895, except for a few economic interruptions here and there. So think of it as during or just before the American Revolution until exactly 30 years after the Civil War. So that's a long time, making this one of the more successful of the several iron smelters or blast furnaces along the South Mountain chain of South Central Pennsylvania and extending into Maryland. When you look at one of these old furnaces, you have to keep in mind that it was the center of an industrial complex. There was lots of machinery here, including the blast machinery forcing air in the bottom. There was a large water wheel here for almost 100 years that was only replaced with a modern steam engine in the last couple decades of operation. There were also other buildings attached, including all-important casting house, which is right where we're standing now. Now, the basic process is that you're loading your critical raw ingredients, charcoal from local forests, iron ore mined just a few hundred yards away, and some local limestone in layers like a cake over and over every 15 to 20 minutes. When you burn that charcoal with forced air or oxygen, it gets up towards 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ingredients eventually liquefy, and we have a high temperature, high volume chemical process that's smelting, not just melting. Two liquids accumulate at the bottom of the furnace, in the brick area at the bottom, which is the hottest part, called the crucible. One of those layers on top is the slag, which is a waste product. The limestone, or flux, grabs onto those parts of the iron ore that are not iron. That slag material is drained off periodically, allowed to solidify, smashed into pieces with hammers, and then basically thrown away. It's a waste material, a byproduct of smelting iron. And you can find pieces of slag all over our state park, and indeed all through the Michaud State Forest. Sometimes they used it as road fill for wagon haul roads. What we're trying to get out of this process is the iron itself. Again, at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it's a liquid, and it's very dense, so it's underneath the slag right at the bottom of the furnace. That iron is tapped maybe every 12 hours. So a clay plug is broken open, and the metal flows out, cools, and solidifies. Now, what do we do with it? There's two things. We can let it go into molds. In other words, we can make useful shapes out of it, whether it's the components of a 10-plate stove or a pot or Dutch oven, which they made here, maybe industrial components, etc. Instead of directly casting it, the other thing we can do is let it flow into channels in the sand floor of the casting house. And these parallel channels reminded an agrarian society of baby pigs with their mama, and that's where we get the idea of pig iron. Now, those pigs, when they cool, are broken into chunks, maybe 3 or 4 feet long, weighing up to 100 pounds. And they are an intermediate product. Pig metal is very brittle, so for some applications, you can't really use it. You can't give it to a blacksmith because it will simply shatter. You can't take it to a rolling mill. So the pig iron, those long bars, needs to be converted into a final product that we call wrought iron or worked iron. And that was done as a separate step at a finery forge, such as we had here at Pine Grove. 2 miles away in our state park was the Laurel Forge, built in 1830.